From dynasty to dynasty throughout time, China has remained one of the most powerful forces in the world, and throughout that time, they've undergone a whole lot of change. Here's 10 disturbing events from ancient China you weren't taught in school. First up, we have what it took to build the Great Wall. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but no, you can't see the Great Wall of China from space. And while the current wall dates back to the Ming Dynasty, most people don't know this not-so-fun fact about the construction of the monument. According to History.com, it's estimated that around 400,000 laborers lost their lives during the construction of the wall, with the vast majority of their bodies winding up inside or underneath it. And speaking of those laborers, I think it's fair to say they weren't thrilled to be building it in the first place. Back in 221 BCE, when construction began, there weren't nearly enough willing people to drop what they were doing and start working on a superstructure. So the Qin Emperor, Qin Shi Huang, just forced people into doing it for him. They rounded up farmers by the thousands and basically told them build or else. And so they got to building. So now while we marvel at the sheer size of the wall, the loss of lives is on par with war and national tragedy. Really paints a completely different picture. At number 9, we have the construction of Qin Shi Huang's museum. But the forced construction doesn't end with the Great Wall. For 38 years, laborers created the mausoleum of the first Shen Emperor, the planned final resting place of Shen Shi Huang. Designed on the inside was Shenyang, which was the capital of the Jin Dynasty. The whole thing is situated underneath a 76-meter tall tomb and was designed to replicate the grandeur of his kingdom in the afterlife, and was equipped with various features, including palaces, pavilions, gardens, and treasures. Like the Great Wall, thousands lost their lives in the construction, but he was the man who they believed unified China, so their sacrifice was for a good cause. Today, the mausoleum is more commonly known for its Terracotta Army, a collection of life-size clay soldiers and horses discovered near their burial site. These sculptures were intended to protect the emperor in the afterlife and were meticulously crafted with individualized features. The whole complex remained unexcavated until 1974, and a vast majority of it still hasn't been discovered, so what else lies beneath remains a mystery. When the Jin Dynasty fell, with it came the Han Dynasty, which is often considered the golden age for China. During this period, they saw advancements in education, literature, agriculture, medicine, and the implementation of the civil service system. During this period, Confucianism became the dominant ideology, as Emperor Wu implemented Confucian principles in governance and established the civil service examination system to recruit officials based on their merit rather than their hereditary status. The Han Dynasty played a crucial role in opening and developing the Silk Road trade routes, which facilitated cultural and economic exchanges between China and the West. Trade along the Silk Road contributed to the economic prosperity of the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty witnessed significant technological advancements, including the invention of paper, improvements in iron casting, and the use of water-powered mills. Han art and culture flourished during this period. The production of jade and ceramic artifacts, including the famous Han pottery figurines, exemplifies the artistic achievements of the era. But still, the later years of the Han Dynasty were riddled with internal strife, corruption, and the weakening of central authority. In 220 CE, the Han Dynasty officially ended when the warlord Cao Cao's son, Cao Pi, forced Emperor Xian to abdicate, leading to the establishment of the Three Kingdoms period. But were there any other events leading to the Han Dynasty's collapse? A big one of those was the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Things started off when Cheng Chu, who was a Taoist faith healer, claimed to have received a divine revelation that told him to overthrow the corrupt Han Dynasty and establish a utopian society. So Cheng Chu and his followers, who were often identified by the yellow scarves they wore, decided to take action. But who were his followers? Well, they were primarily from the lower classes and were discontented with the government's failure to address widespread poverty, social inequality, and famine. The uprising was widespread and resulted in the seizure of several regions across China. The rebels engaged in guerrilla warfare, attacking government institutions, disrupting trade routes, and spreading their ideology among the populace. This led to a conflict that spanned over 2 decades until in 205 CE, when Zhang Jue was captured and the rebellion lost its momentum. The Yellow Turbans were strong, however, but because China armed their warlords, they would go on to break apart China into 3 kingdoms. So now there's 3 states: Wei, Shu, and Wu. Looking back, this was a popular period in Chinese literature, but it's also remembered for being the bloodiest. While the 3 kingdoms period laid the foundation for subsequent dynasties and played a crucial role in shaping the cultural and historical narrative of China, when the 3 kingdoms era ended, the country's population was only a fraction of what it was beforehand. So who was in charge of each area? First, there was Qiao Wei, founded by Cao Cao and later ruled by his descendants known as the Wei. Next, there was Shu Han, founded by Liao Bei and governed by his successors, including Zhuge Liang, known as Shu. Finally, there was Eastern Wu, founded by Sun Chen. There were constant struggles between the 3, but one of the most famous battles of the 3 Kingdoms period was the Battle of Red Cliffs, fought on the Yangtze River. Forces allied with Shu Han and Eastern Wu successfully repelled a larger Cao Wei fleet. The 3 Kingdoms period came to an end when the state of Jin emerged victorious and unified China in 280 CE under the leadership of Sima Yan, who established the Western Jin Dynasty. But Western Jin suffered some of the same struggles and internal conflicts. During this time, power struggles among regional warlords and weakened central authority undermined the dynasty's stability. Simultaneously, invasions and pressure from nomadic tribes in the north, notably the Xiongnu and Xianbei, posed continuous threats to the empire's territories. The weakening of the central government's control, coupled with internal strife, gradually eroded the dynasty's power and effectiveness. In 316 CE, rebellions led by the Xiongnu and Xianbei resulted in the overthrow of the Sima family, which ruled the Western Jin Dynasty. And so, the collapse of the Western Jin Dynasty marked the end of its efforts to reunify China under a centralized rule. It led to further fragmentation, paving the way for the division of China into the Eastern Jin Dynasty in the south and various northern dynasties during the subsequent period known as the Southern and Northern Dynasties. Fast forward a couple hundred years, and we've ended up in 581 CE in the beginning of the Sui Dynasty. While Sui only lasted for 37 years, the advancements that were made during the period are extraordinary. Around this time, construction of the Great Wall reached its end, and both the northern and southern dynasties unified once again. One major construction was the Grand Canal, which is still the largest artificial river in the world, and to this day spans over 1,500 kilometers long. The canal's initial purposes were improving grain shipments to the capital and helping with military logistics such as transportation of troops, but the new, reliable inland route would ultimately help facilitate domestic trade, the flow of people, and cultural exchange for centuries. But sadly, like the wall and the mausoleum before, unscripted workers were the majority of those who created this, amongst other megastructures. While successful, the Sui dynasty would reach its end following their war with Goguryeo, or one of Korea's three kingdoms, resulting in their defeat in 614 CE. 3 years later, Emperor Yang was assassinated, and with his passing came the Tang Dynasty. The Tang Dynasty lasted much longer than the Sui, but there's a reason it's often regarded as a high point in Chinese civilization. During this time, Wu Zetian became the first female empress in China's history, and significant advancements were made in arts, literature, and philosophy. Populations around this time grew exponentially, and troops in the hundreds of thousands protected the area from surrounding Asian nations. More than that though, this area is mostly known for its poetry. Influential poets Li Bai and Du Fu belonged to this age, whose work set the standard for poets for generations. If not poetry, the time is also known for the advancements and inventions from that time, many of which we still use today. Woodblock painting was refined and made more widespread, gunpowder was refined into the earliest firearms, and the groundworks for mechanical clocks were created before Su Yong would finalize them later. Around this time, Buddhism also started appearing more often, with numbers of Buddhists increasing before Emperor Wuzong would enact policies suppressing it. Like past dynasties, government dysfunction led to its demise in 907 CE, but it still remains an important part of Chinese past. Sadly, the Song Dynasty isn't regarded in a high light. Lasting from 960 to 1279 CE, it is divided into two main periods, the Northern Song and the Southern Song. During its years, it faced challenges from external invasions and eventually succumbed to the Mongol conquest. In the beginning, things were pretty good. The Northern Song Dynasty was a time of cultural flourishing, with significant developments in poetry, painting, calligraphy, and ceramics. As well, the Northern Song era witnessed technological innovations, including the invention of movable printing, the magnetic compass, and the aforementioned mechanical clock. But of course, the Northern Song Dynasty faced external threats from nomadic people, particularly the Qianliao Dynasty in the north. After the fall of the Northern Song capital, the Southern Song Dynasty was established, but territorial losses and military challenges for the Southern Song Dynasty increased following more pressure from the Mongol Empire, who was led by Kublai Khan, who you may know is the grandson of Genghis Khan. Following a long and gruesome battle, the Mongols have now taken power. This happened when Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, as we know, established the Yuan Dynasty after successfully conquering the Southern Song Dynasty in 1279 and unifying China. The Yuan Dynasty implemented administrative reforms that blended Mongol and Chinese administrative practices. The government was organized along traditional Chinese lines, but Mongol elites held top positions. The Yuan Dynasty witnessed a blending of Mongol, Chinese, Persian, and Central Asian cultures. The court was cosmopolitan, with influences from various regions of the Mongol Empire. The Yuan Dynasty maintained diplomatic ties with other parts of the Mongol Empire, the Middle East, and Europe. Travelers were plentiful, including Marco Polo, the Venetian explorer, who visited China during this period. Kublai Khan implemented policies to boost the economy, including the promotion of trade and agriculture. The establishment of relay stations and the use of paper money facilitated trade and communication, but there was a trend that predictably followed the Yuan Dynasty. The later years saw internal strife, financial difficulties, and growing discontent amongst the Chinese population. Numerous uprisings, including the Red Turban Rebellion led by the Ming Dynasty founder Chu Yuanchang, contributed to the collapse of the Yuan Dynasty. In 1368, the Ming Dynasty forces overthrew the Yuan Dynasty, and Chu Yuanchang declared himself the Hongwu Emperor, founding the Ming Dynasty. While the Yuan Dynasty is often criticized for its foreign rule and the challenges faced during during its later years, it also left a significant impact on Chinese history and culture. The era contributed to the interconnectedness of various regions within the vast Mongol Empire. That's our list of 10 events from ancient China's history. Make sure to like this video and feel free to trash me for butchering any pronunciations. For Bumblebee, I'm Ethan. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.